Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Okay, so welcome to the third week of plastic waste management course. So we have already finished 10 lectures. This is lecture number 11, and in this lecture we will be looking at plastic waste management rules. So we'll be talking about the rules and regulation which came in India. It was 2016 rule. We'll talk about that, and there has been some amendments to this rule which was discussed and kind of under implementation since 2018. So we'll talk about the amendment to 2016 rule as well. So the focus on this particular week over next 5 video will be to try to understand the plastic waste management rules of India. And at the same time, in terms of the concept that will be covered in this week, we will be also looking at how the Indian rule compares with the global rules and regulation. So we'll try to bring some example from other countries, like what is happening in part of US, what is happening in Europe, what is predominantly happening in Japan and Korea, and if we can those kind of discussions will be part of this particular week. So that's the concepts that will be covered. So let's try to understand the rules, Indian rule, and how it compares and contrasts with global rules, and what is some salient points of these rules. Although, as I think I have told in previous class, maybe in this class as well, in this course as well, its rules are very boring. Like remember any software that you try to install on your laptop or on your phone, there will be a long list of license agreement which we just kind of click and say accept. We don't never really read about it, but they are important. Rules has their own place, and then the rules are very important for any implementation of any program. So although rules may get dry sometimes, but it's very essential for us as an environmental professional to be aware of the rule. We may not be become like an expert on this particular rule, because that's not our domain. We can get the help of our lawyer friends who work in the area of environmental law to help us on that aspect. But in general, we should have a pretty much some idea about what are the rules, what are the responsibilities of different stakeholders in terms of the plastic waste management. So let's get started. So in terms of rule, I thought I will just give you a little bit history about waste management rules, or in general we can talk about even the environmental rule in the country. So if you look at the Indian environmental rules and acts that has been passed, in this particular slide that we have here, I have tried to give a snapshot of that, just kind of a, you can say, big picture summary of it. So and it's in a timeline. So we'll go from early efforts in 1960s to the recent efforts of 2016 and 2018. So 2018 is just last year. So if you look at how things have evolved in the Indian context, we can start from first stuff that was came up in terms of waste management was looking at Ministry of Agriculture announced loans for composting of solid waste. So think about that, 1960, when for the first time that people started thinking about in our country that we need to compost our agricultural waste, in the compost of solid waste, predominantly agricultural waste at that particular time. And so that's started in 1960, long back, even I was not born. And then we had the kind of first Environmental Protection Act came in 1986. So 1986, when the Environmental Protection Act came in terms of what that first set of rules for environmental protection. Then 1989, we have the hazardous waste rule. When 1989, because of the industrialization in the country, We have started producing lots of different types of chemicals, many of these hazardous chemicals, and then the hazardous waste were being produced in different industries. So, there was a need in the country to look at the hazardous waste management. So, and that came in 1989. So, that would be around 13 years after US has their first hazardous waste management rules. So, if you look at that way, in terms of the rule making in India, we are not actually far behind than rest of the world. The problem actually comes in the implementation of those rules, and sometimes the ambiguity of that rule needs to be resolved. The infrastructure is not in place, which we will talk about in this. If you have taken my solid waste class, which is another NPTEL course which is offered in the other semester, that integrated waste management for smart cities, as well we talked about that how the rules are sometimes not that practical, although it is good, it is strong, it makes sense to have, but India may not be ready for that kind of rule yet, because that kind of rule is there in Europe or in North America, because they have been working on waste management for 30-40 years, and today they are able to follow that rule. Everything has a learning curve. So, it takes time for any society to evolve in terms of managing their waste or looking at their environmental protection. So, our rule for hazardous waste came in 1989. RECRA, the Resource Conservation Recovery Act, which is kind of the primary act for hazardous waste and solid waste rules in USA, United States. It came in 1976. So, around 13 years before our hazardous waste management rule came into effect. Then something happened in the country. In 1994, you see here kind of highlighted in a yellowish color. In 1994, we had the Surat plague, and that raised a lot of awareness, and that kind of created a lot of you can say concern in terms of improper management of waste in the country, because the Surat plague at that particular time, Surat was one of the dirtiest city in the country. Today, Surat is one of the cleanest city in the country. So, there was a realization, and the local government came into being, and then the Surat plague was kind of a wake up call for environmental professionals, environmental practitioners, government offices in the environmental sector, and then we had several follow up things that was done. It started with Bajaj Committee, which was formed in 1995. You see JL Bajaj Committee. Then we also had Burman Committee in 1998, and 1998 we also had our biomedical waste rule came into picture. So, with the biomedical waste rules came in picture. Then we had municipal solid waste management rules, which came in 2000, and rule was made, and at the same time there was this CPHO manual on solid waste management was also developed. CPHO manual is kind of a design, I would not call it a design, it is like a guidance document to help people so that the ULBs and urban local bodies, the cities, the states in general should be able to implement those rules. So, that is what the CPHO manual kind of helps in terms of implementation of those rules. So, that is where that came in 2000, right after like a kind of follow up to this municipal solid waste rules. Then in 2001 we have a battery rule. 2005, it's not a Indian phenomena, it's a global phenomena. We have the Clean Development Mechanism, CDM, its Kyoto Protocol came in 2005, which again acted some more some more follow up action. Hazardous waste rule was revised in 2008, which was again further revised in 2016. We had NGT Act came in, National Green Tribunal in 2010, e-waste rule in 2011, same with plastic waste rule also came in 2011. First plastic waste rule came in 2011, which was again further in 2016 it was revised. Swachh Bharat Mission came in picture in 2014, Subramaniam Committee again around the same time, National Action Plan for Swachh Bharat Mission, revised CPHO manual on solid waste in 2016, Then all these rules had a revision in 2016, solid waste management rules, electronic waste, plastic waste, biomedical, hazardous. Now a new rule, C&D waste, construction and demolition waste was also added. So as you can see, in terms of the rule making, Ministry of Environment and Climate Change, along with partnership with the different stakeholders, lots of different rules have been made in the country. In this particular course, since our focus is on plastic waste, we will be talking about mostly plastic waste rule, but in terms of solid waste management rules also kind of deals with plastic a little bit. Hazardous waste rule may also deal with plastic a little bit, biomedical waste as well. So, but all these aspect of plastic kind of has been taken and put into one plastic waste management rule, which we will be talking in a little bit detail in this particular course, and kind of look at. And if you have looked at other rule in terms of the e-waste management rule, which is covered again in other NPTEL course, which is running parallelly this semester as well. And then we have solid waste management rules of 2016. So all these rules, as you will see, the basic kind of principle, basic layout is more or less the same. Of course, the details will be different because we are looking at the different waste streams, but the basic layout is more or less kind of makes similar structure. So just a quick overview of different rules that we have, and just to give you like a historical perspective of environmental rules and acts from Indian angle. Now, in terms of major environmental statutes, we had the Water Act 1974, we also had the Water Cess Act 1973, Air Act in 1981, Environmental Protection Act in 1986, which you saw, which was kind of one comprehensive, which took water, air, and not that much on solid waste, mostly water and air was kind of packed, so here number 1, 2 and 3 is kind of taken together and merged to make number 4. So that's what Environmental Protection Act 1986. So in terms of some other statutes, you saw that hazardous waste chemical rules. So these are just kind of a revision of what we saw in the summary in the first in that timeline slide. So I'll go through these a little bit faster. So we had this hazardous chemical rules 1918, which got replaced by hazardous waste rule 2008. Then we have coastal regulation zone 1991. Chemical accidents, which is emergency planning, preparedness and response rules, which is 1996, again kind of relates to hazardous waste, hazardous chemicals, biomedical waste rule revised in 2016, recycle plastic manufacture and cess amendment rules, which also has been in place for quite some time. So if you look at the plastic waste management rules, so which is the major ones which we are going to talk about, then we had solid waste management rules, hazardous waste, every rule got revised. Batteries rules are there, noise pollution regulation control amendment rules is also present. So if you look at the kind of why this plastic waste management rule, what was the need for having a separate plastic waste management rule? Plastic, as we saw in the previous 2 weeks, is becoming like we are using lots and lots of plastics, and you saw all those figures already. So you can actually now teach me in terms of plastic, like in terms of the quantity and global perspective of plastic waste. What are the sources, how it is distributed in an environment in different types of environmental systems, and different types of plastic. We talked about that in week 1. So week 1 and week 2 kind of covered a lot about different types of plastics, the quantity, how it is projected to be much higher in by coming years, coming decade. So all these, because plastic by itself is becoming a quite significant portion of the waste stream. There was a thought in you can say global community and in different countries as well, that we need to have a separate set of rules just focused on plastic, just because the plastic by itself is becoming a environmental, you can call nightmare, or you can say it's a nuisance, or and when we say we are talking about plastic waste. The rule is also plastic waste management rule. It is not plastic management rule. So once it comes in a waste stream, then it's a problem. Plastic products by itself, as I said earlier as well, the plastic being such a nice material because it does a lot of functions. it does not degrade. It can be used in many applications, and it is kind of you should say that it is pretty like a non-reactive. So, it stays in the environment, which is kind of becomes negative when we talk about the plastic waste. So, plastic waste it becomes a negative because it does not degrade. So, it just breaks down into smaller pieces, and the smaller pieces ends up in the ocean, in the river, from the river to the ocean, and the ocean we have fish, marine, it becomes part of the marine litter, creates a lot of chaos, a lot of environmental problem, human health, environmental health as well as human health problem. So, plastic by itself becoming a huge, and there is an indiscriminate disposal of plastic has become a major threat to the environment. So, that is what because we are using plastic a lot. You go to any shopping nowadays many places plastic bags are banned, especially those single use plastic, this plastic carry bags. And when we talk about this plastic carry bags, actually we are talking mostly about those thin ones. We are the thin bags, which is less than like 40 micron, less than 50 micron, that bag we are talking about. So, which is a thin bag which kind of flows around, gets into the environment much easier. But if you have a thick bag that you buy, say if you bought some fancy stuff in a mall shop, they many times give you a thicker bag. So, that bag is not that much of a problem as compared to the thin bag that you get when you buy kind of in a grocery shop, or sometimes not that much in grocery, but maybe in the fruit shops and the vegetable shops, though there you get those thin bags, which becomes a problem. So, this in particular the plastic carry bags are the biggest contributor of littered waste. So, when we say it is biggest contributor of the littered waste, if you remember from the last slide, last video, or maybe the video before, we looked at if you go by the weight, if you go by the weight of the material, plastic, this thin plastic carry bags is only around few percent. Volume wise it is a lot. So, when we look at the volume, it becomes too much, and that volume needs to, because it is very light. So, you see it kind of too much, but if you take the weight wise, it is not that much. So, but it does move around quite a bit, and every year million of plastic bags end up in the environment, in soil, water bodies, water courses, and it takes in average, it may take an average of around 1000 years to decompose. So, in 1000 years what will happen? It will start disintegrating, it will get from bigger pieces to smaller pieces through some like a water current, through some wear and tear, because of exposure to the UV rays, because of the exposure of the sunlight, and so it will get into the smaller pieces, and that smaller pieces actually becomes kind of food for lower organism compound in marine and water environment. So, and it takes 1000 years to decompose completely. So, it is lot of time. So, thereby there has been a need of plastic waste management to deal for all plastic waste related problems. So, the problem with plastic waste is now well established. We know that it is an issue, and just recently many articles, you just go on Google and say plastic waste management issues, you will find tons and tons of articles, many websites. BBC has done some recent work in that area as well. There are many small stories on plastic related environmental problem on BBC website, and one of them kind of relates to plastic getting into river Ganga. So, where they try to estimate how much plastic is actually getting into river Ganga. So, our river Ganga is getting impacted by plastic pollution as well, which we kind of know, because which was also there. We saw that in some of the previous videos in terms of the data that has come from some of the studies, that some of these Asian rivers are contributing a lot of plastic to the ocean. So, so that is the reason why the rule was there was a need, there was a thought that yes, we need to have some sort of rule, to have a plastic waste management rule has to be in place. And although the rule finally came into existence in 2016, before that we have a 2011 rule as well, but in terms of looking at plastic usage in the industry and plastic manufacturing, way back in 1999, there was a kind of a rule which was looking at plastic waste, like a recycled plastic manufactured and usage rule. So, when you try to recycle the plastic, you need to make sure that you do it in an environmentally safe way. Then this kind of led to a plastic waste management and handling rules in 2011, which was notified in 2011, which included plastic waste management. So, for the first time, the plastic waste management kind of thought about in 2011 in terms of the plastic waste management and handling rules. Then this was government notified that in 2016. In 2016, as you know, all the rules were updated, some modifications were done. More or less, it was like maybe slightly modification for what was there in 2011. But since the government wanted to revise everything, all the different rules, so they put a 1 year kind of date, and there were some modifications for sure, and separation of these earlier plastic waste management rules, and then they were notified on 18th March 2016. So, now that is why it is easy for us to remember all of these rules were revised in 2016. So, solid waste management rules 2016, plastic waste 2016, so e-waste 2016. So, it is one way it is easier for you to, if somebody asks you for in a general knowledge question, that when the last time these rules were revised 2016, it is easy, but there has been work in progress. It is not that thing were done just in 2016, there have always been work in progress, and we are trying to develop rules and regulations for better management of that. Again, rule we have one of the as you will see, one of the strictest rule in the world, but the implementation even in the plastic waste sector, as we saw in e-waste sector and other sectors, is still lacking. We still need to, the infrastructure needs to be in place to manage this kind of waste stream, which is not there until now. There have been some work going bits and pieces here and there, but in general we are still lacking a lot of infrastructure to support these rules. So, this is just a newspaper snapshot where you can see Ministry of Environment and Climate Change. He was Ministry of Environment and Climate Change in 2016, Sri Prakash Javadekar ji, which you can see he was government has notified the plastic waste management rules 2016 that will now supersede 2011 rules. Minister of State for Environment he's announced that, and the new rules will extend the right to the village to ensure proper plastic right at a grassroots level where plastic is much in use. So, there was some modification, of course, from 2011 to 2016. 2016 became more comprehensive rule. Lot of different stakeholders were also included in 2016 rules, which was not there in 2011, which is true for other waste stream as well, where here, for example, even the rural areas were included, because earlier the thought was plastic waste problem is only for urban areas. But as the government, based on the feedback that the government has received, they felt it is that we are actually seeing a lot of plastic related stuff showing up in the waste stream in the rural area as well. So, they should be included. So, this rule in 2016 revision, it was done, and but again this was there has to be we need to focus on overhauling of plastic waste management system. So, that is very, very important. Before you do a countrywide ban on plastic, it says that the conceding that a countrywide ban on plastic is not practical in the absence of a suitable eco-friendly alternative, the rule calls for comprehensive overhauling of plastic waste management system. So, which I tried to highlight earlier as well. Just banning stuff is not the solution actually. You want to ban plastic, great, but what will replace these plastic bags? Because there has to be a viable alternative which can take the place of plastic. If we can come up with a material which does the job of plastic and which is eco-friendly, which is environmental friendly, it is easy to replace. Otherwise, it is not that easy to replace plastic. So, we can ban certain items, which is really nuisance for the environment in terms of plastic, but plastic is everywhere nowadays, from morning toothbrush to evening medicine, or even when you go for anything like for all the stuff that you touch since morning you get up until evening you sleep, if you can count on that, you will find probably more than 100 items will be there which you have touched, which were made of plastic, which plastic is one of the component in there. So, one thing they have done, that the minimum thickness, as per the new rule, the minimum thickness of plastic carry bag has been increased from 40 microns to 50 microns, and with this that so it will increase the cost. Of course, it will the cost will go up, and then there will not be free. The thought process was that there will not be free carry bag and stored. There will be some charges. Once there is some charges, people will start carrying their own bag. We always talk about in the waste management sector, one more thing we always talk about is the behavior aspect. Once people start behaving properly, like when we say behaving properly means it becomes a habit. We have a habit of kind of wasting stuff, and earlier if you remember, people used to carry their bags when you go for shopping. Nowadays, in between we had carrying bags was out of fashion. It was not, say, if you you are carrying a bag, you are not cool, isn't it? You have to look cool, so you have to behave cool. I don't know what is that cool, but it does lead to many where it was out of fashion to carry your own bag, and that led to usage of all these plastic bags. Now, with plastic bans and realization that these single use plastic bags of 40 micron size is a nuisance to the environment, we should not use it because it's like a health hazard, it's an environmental hazard. So, people have started focusing on that we need to kind of get away with this and start using our reusable bags again, reusable bags, reusable cans, reusable water bottles, and that's where things are coming back to. So, and that's to have a, so that people go and do it, like people are more so that it becomes like for the people to go and not buy these bags. Government's philosophy or this rules philosophy is that if we make that people pay for these bags, it will deter them, because economics is something which everybody understands. So, hopefully that will help in getting rid of some of these plastics coming into our environment. So, some quick like we will look at some of these table and then kind of close this particular video. In terms of a scope of application for this particular rule, how it changes, what were the major changes from 2011 and 2016. It was 2011 was mostly focused only on urban, on the municipality area. The focus was more on the municipality area. Now, here the entire waste generator, gram panchayat, local bodies, jurisdiction also extended to rural areas as plastics are reaching in rural area, and responsibility for implementation of the rule was given to the gram panchayat. Now, these are great initiative, but the question is they need to have a lot of capacity building, like people need to know how to really manage this plastic. I tell my gram panchayat, okay, you need to have and do it, but they don't know really how to do it. So, we have to train them, we have to provide a lot of capacity building in the waste management sector in general, and plastic waste in particular, that people should be aware what is actually why we, first of all, see, you need to get people on board in terms of why this plastic waste management is important, why we need to manage this plastic in a better way. Of course, there are some evidence, there are things on the YouTube or things on Google, you find different website, but that's in general. Many times people say, oh, that's what is happening in developed country, that is what is happening in a big wealthy community, we are a poor community, we live in a small village, what is the problem we have? So, we need to educate these people that these are the problems that you are going to face if you are not going to manage the plastic waste properly. Especially if you go to any village today, you will find that there are so many small plastic sachets, all those like from shampoo, oil, and this pan masalas, the gutkas, and lot of other things are used. It's small packets for different food items as well. And these things have market because people have low income, they have low disposable income where they can buy this stuff. People, they are daily laborers, daily wage earners who get the money, go to market, buy this small stuff because they also want to enjoy those luxuries of life, and they have every right to do that, and then they will use those stuff. But they cannot buy a 70 rupees, say 70, sometimes 100, not 70, maybe too cheap, maybe 100 rupees, 150 rupees shampoo bottle. So they will buy those 1 rupee pouch, and that 1 rupee pouch will create this plastic waste every day when after they are taking shower, after taking bath. So those and they add up. If they may feel like, oh, this is only a small package what you are talking about, but over the time they do add up. And with the population of the village, they do add up, and that's not only one, there are several items like that which is used from morning to evening. So that really leads to, and so manage those waste, our Gram Panchayat needs to understand how to manage it, then only they will be able to do it. So, and the other things was there was some prohibition that minimum thickness of the plastic carry bag made of virgin or recycled plastic kept at 40 microns only. That was in 2011, and it was in 2016 it was increased to 50 microns. Now, waste generators like event organizer, institutional generators were earlier not under any specific responsibility. Now, individual and bulk generators like commercial establishment, offices, industries, event organizers have to segregate the plastic waste at source and hand over segregated waste, and also pay the user fee as prescribed by ULB and the spot fine in case of violation. So, these things many of the developed country also do not have. That is where I have some problem, like I have some problem when we start putting so many things in the rule without even being able to achieve this. We were not able to achieve this, but we want to achieve this without doing any infrastructure development. How is that possible? See, it's too idealist sometimes. You have to be a pro growth oriented in terms of environmental performance and all that. That's great, but going from here to here without being able to achieve what was there, which was much easier. Now, you are asking the people to segregate the plastic waste at source, hand over segregated waste. Okay, I give hand over segregated plastic waste to this ULB person. He does not have truck to carry it as unsegregated, to segregate it. He will mix it together. So, what is the point of doing it? So, first let us build the infrastructure so that we can follow these rules. So, things can go parallel. Things can go parallel as well, but building infrastructure, capacity building, knowledge, capacity, training, those are very, very important. Then only these rules can be really implemented. So, responsibility of earlier for the street retailers, street vendors, now they have been also given only the shopkeepers, street vendor registered with the local body after a payment of fee of 48,000 or 400,000 per month will be eligible to provide plastic carry bags. Now, small shop owners, how they will pay this money. No specification in terms of EPR, and then there was an introduced EPR for produced and brand owners, making them responsible for waste generator, and for first time earlier it was left to the description of the local body. So, then the EPR concept was also introduced. So, that is kind of discussion in terms of plastic waste management rules. So, we will continue this discussion. As you can see, of course, we need to make improvement. There are some improvements happening, but at the same time we are actually making this rule sometimes too clumsy and too idealist, and probably not to be able to implement that. So, we will continue this discussion in the next video as well, in the next module. So, again, thank you and for your interest, and I hope you are enjoying this course. Any issue, put it on the discussion forum. We will be happy to answer. See you in the next video. Thank you.